Michael Williams. What was your first car?
Oh my gosh. A green Mustang. It was like a 1995 Mustang.
And did you purchase it yourself?
Oh, no. I was like, no. My mom and dad helped me with that. Yeah, I was like 16 or 17.
They gifted it to you.
Yeah.
Did you like it? Were you excited?
Oh, I loved it.
Mm.
Yes, because before that I was driving my grandma's white, like, 1980s Toyota something.
Oh, no.
You know, and
Not
so...
the 1980s Toyota.
That's what I was driving when I had my, like, driver's permit, and then I was like, I want a Mustang. I thought for sure I wasn't going to get it. And I wasn't new by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
But it was a Mustang.
Mustangs are great.
Yeah, a lot went on in that car in high school.
Yeah. I had two Mustangs in the 80s. Yeah. 82 and an 85. Not a green one. I had a black one and a white one.
It was like that weird, I don't even know what color to call it. It was like that weird turquoise green they used to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was that one.
That's kind of a dope color.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
I like it. I was trying to think of who else had Mustangs. It's you.
Yeah, it was me. My
Yeah.
dad had a 65 and a half. I don't know if you know. They were like famous. They only made them for a little while.
I don't know.
It was green.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I only saw pictures of it, but
He
my
had some
family was,
donuts in the
I
parking
used
lot.
to do all kinds of stuff in that thing. Yeah.
He is crazy. He started driving at 12.
Oh, wow.
I know. Can you believe that?
Wow.
It was the 80s. Like,
Yeah.
It was much cooler to
Shit
drive
just
at 12
happened.
in
And
the
he was
80s.
in Virginia.
Oh
Right.
my God.
So it was...
See, I didn't do donuts, but I did a lot of things in the back seat of it. It's amazing what you can do in the back, which you can pull off in a back seat of a Mustang.
Oh, yeah. That's
When you're, in high school, it's the only place you have to go.
That should be like their ad campaign. What can you pull off in the backseat of a Mustang?
I'm sure it's been the title of some story.
Yeah, somewhere.
Right?
All right, I am Laura Cathcart-Robbins. This is the only one in the room, but I am never the only one in this room because, as usual, my boyfriend, producer, and co-host, Scott Slaughter, who I call Hun, is here as well.
Hi, honey.
Hi, honey. Hi, Hun. I just wanted to say how much I'm loving the Roomies, our Facebook group. Creating that community was one of the best things we've ever done.
Yeah, I'm so glad I thought of that.
Did you think of it? I don't really remember it that way.
Well, you know how these ideas are all in the air. Whoever really remembers who said what?
Well, I do. But
Yeah, you do.
let's put a pin in that. So what I want to say is how helpful they've been, giving us the questions to ask our upcoming guests.
Yeah, for sure. They've been so great and so active. Didn't they give us a number of questions for Justin?
They did.
Mm-hmm.
So we got questions from Deb All, who said, how can I go deeper into my mindfulness practice? And
Right on,
Sharon
Deb.
Hart, who asked, how can I use mindfulness to help alleviate anxiety?
Yeah, I can see Justin trying to figure that one out.
I got some good answers.
And I loved how a couple of people spoke to the distinction between meditation and mindfulness. Stacy Funk said mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment without judgment, and meditation is the process of turning inward.
That's good.
Yeah. And our beloved Dr. Troy Byer.
Dr. Troy.
Yeah, Troy. Founder of CEO and CEO of Mindful Fitness.
Mindology Fitness.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Boy, I just stumbled all over that one, didn't I? She said mindfulness is a noun and meditation is a verb.
Shout out to Troy for that. Thank you, Dr. Troy. We'll see what Justin has to say about that, too. So let me introduce him so he can actually speak. Justin Michael Williams is an author of Stay Woke, a meditation guide for the rest of us, or is the author of Stay Woke, a meditation guide for the rest of us. He is a speaker and host of the dope-ass weekly podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Motivation for Black People, and a top 20 recording artist who is using music and meditation to wake up the world. By working at the intersection of music, mindfulness, and social justice, Justin has become a pioneering millennial voice for the new healing movement. Justin is committed to using his voice for change, and his greatest wish is to empower people from all walks of life to wake up to their life's purpose and accomplish the dreams they thought were impossible.
Right on. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're so glad you're here. This is
I'm so happy
cool.
to be here.
Can you finish the sentence for me? Your only one statement. I am the only...
Queer Black meditation teacher in the room.
Yes, you are.
I am.
Yes, you really are.
In almost pretty much every room I've been in.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is a lot of only ones right there.
Yeah.
Just taking each of those separately.
Yeah.
But all together, yeah, that makes you definitely an only one. Before we get into your story, a couple things. we need to once again shout out the homie Jay Connor.
Yes.
Jay.
His
Jay.
IG handle is @death2adverbs.
We love Jay.
We love him. And he was
Mhm.
wearing his Hun hat out in the world, representing the only one in the room, and it was a move that attracted your attention, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so tell us
I
about
was
that.
looking. Well, Jay was wearing this Hun hat. We were actually at. We were being bougie, and we were at Soho House.
Oh, is
at
that where you
Soho,
were?
We were at Soho
Jay
Warehouse.
likes to be a little bougie, doesn't
Yeah. Well, it was my membership that got him in. I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
Oh,
I'm just
snap, yeah.
No.
Yes.
Oh my god. So anyway, no, we were at Soho Warehouse, and Jay was wearing this hat. Obviously, it just said Hun on it, and I saw it as soon as he came in. I saw
Yeah.
it. And I was just looking at it, and I was like, what could that possibly stand for? Because my grandma used to call my grandpa Hun
Oh, I love
always,
it.
and that was the only thing that I could think of. But I just knew in my head, I was like, there's no way it means that Hun.
Right.
Like, oh, Hun. So I just said, what is this HON? And then he just started,
Burst.
gushing about you guys and how amazing. He was like, oh, you guys actually, how do you not know each other? You need to
Right.
meet. And
Yeah.
now we're sitting here right now. So
Yes.
thank you, Jay.
Yeah, he is so good at hooking people up. But we also thought it would be good if you had your own Hun hat. So we brought your own Hun hat.
Oh, shit! I got a Hun
We got a little package for you.
Oh
You
my
did, and a shirt.
Oh my god, Jay, we gonna wear matching Hun hats, bro.
You guys
my
can
God.
bouge it up in the hats, and you'll be.
Oh my god.
You
Okay,
get
we're
a lot
gonna
of
fit these
attention.
over these curls,
the
and it's gonna be a whole
curls?
moment.
Okay.
We'll figure
I'll
it
put it
out.
on
We'll do
later.
Yeah, we'll do it
Yeah,
later.
we'll do it later.
That's
This is
so
amazing.
good.
Oh,
I'm so
thank
glad.
you.
Yay.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
That was a
good.
great idea, Hun.
You know, I just did the 5 love languages test. I don't know if
Oh.
you guys have done this.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to find out that like my second highest love language
Gifts.
was receiving gifts.
Yeah.
And so this is making me really happy. And it's not
Yay.
like, oh, because I like people buying me shit. It's like when the thoughtful moments like this
Yes.
happen,
Yeah.
Yes.
it really means a lot. So
I
thank
love
you.
that.
You're speaking
Thank
my
you.
love language.
Yeah, good, man.
So after going back to when he wore the hat and you commented on it, he posted something about you and your book Stay Woke. And I think it was just a picture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Of Stay Woke, and said something that really caught my attention, which was, don't buy flowers for Valentine's Day, or something like that, buy
Mhm.
this book. So I saw that, I got into the comments, and then you and I had this long DM chain, and I just shamelessly pursued you as a guest.
I'm grateful.
I'm grateful. Thank you so much for saying yes. But you told a story when we did our pre-interview call about an article that I wrote that kind of started this podcast that gave me like low-key chills. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, so when your article came out, about talking about being the only one in the room at that retreat,
Brave Magic, yeah.
Brave Magic, it was a trip because everybody in my world knows, like everyone that I've ever spoken in front of or whatever, they know. Even in my book, on the last page of the book, Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic is listed as one of my books that really changed my life. And
Yeah.
I've been following her work for a long time. And so when that article came out, tons of people sent it to me. I can't even say tons without thinking of Huns now.
Right.
But anyway,
Right?
so
Tons of
of
Huns.
people.
tons of people sent
Yeah.
it to me, and they were just like, look, this is you, because I have been doing yoga and meditation since I was 18, which is 12 years ago. And no, God, I'm getting older. 14 years ago, almost.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
Okay.
Yeah.
You look like you're like a teenager. Go ahead.
No, I'll take it.
Yes.
The black don't crack. We got a lot of
Alright.
problems, but this ain't one of them. So, anyway, everybody was sending it to me because I was always the only black guy at all these spiritual retreat centers, at different yoga or wellness conferences and stuff like that, and they were like, Justin, look, like this is probably a lot like your experience. So from the moment, I think the day that kind of came out and caught fire, I had known about you and who you were, but I never put that together
Right.
until this podcast whole situation happened. So it's really amazing.
It's so cool. I love those serendipitous moments.
Mhm.
There's another word for that I can't think of, but it's not coincidence.
No.
No, it's
Divine-
like the divine
timing,
energy,
intervention,
timing.
whatever. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't want to spend too much time on your childhood, but I do want to talk a little bit about how you came to be.
Yeah.
So you grew up in the other Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, California.
Yes.
Yeah, which a lot of people don't
Nobody
know
knows that.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
People only know it if they grew up in the Bay Area and they ever took the Pittsburgh Bay Point train.
Right.
That's how people
yes.
know about it. It's that city on BART.
Yeah. And how was it that? How
Yeah,
was growing up there?
so you know what? It's a really interesting paradox because Pittsburgh, I have so many amazing things that came into my life from growing up in Pittsburgh. Like, it's one of the most diverse cities in all of the United States.
Really?
I think at one point it was on like the top 12 or something like that, and even just in California. And so what was interesting about that is I truly, like, when we were growing up, I had Jewish friends. I was the secretary of the Filipino American Club. I'm not Filipino, but that wasn't
That
weird.
wasn't odd.
It wasn't
Yeah.
weird. Like, everybody was just mixed. I was in quinceañeras. Like, we did all these different things. My best friend was Vietnamese. So growing up with that kind of diversity was amazing because it's kind of shows you this melting pot of what the world can be.
Right.
I really genuinely, when I was growing up there, really thought racism was like non-existent until I moved out of there and moved to LA. I really didn't know. And so that's a big benefit. But on the, shadow side of things, there was a lot of violence. There are gunshot holes on the outside of the house that I grew up in. Grew up in a home with domestic violence, and something that I think a lot of people deal with is that, and also alcoholism in my family. And so there was a lot of trauma, a lot of love. My parents did the best that they could. They tried so hard. And I think about how young they were, when they're 23. I can barely even imagine having a dog now,
Right.
and my mom had me when she was 23. So it was just, it was rough growing up in that environment. I think one of the toughest things was growing up knowing that I was gay at a really young age. Honestly, people knowing I was gay before I even knew what gay was. And
How did they know that?
I have no idea. I guess it just comes bleeding off of me. But I
You
actually
have siblings.
I have siblings. Yeah.
3 others?
3. So I have 3 younger and 1 older.
Okay.
Yeah, and
And you were different from them in that way?
yeah, different. And this was the thing. I remember the first time. I don't think I've ever told this story. I remember the first time I ever got called gay, and it was when I was in 2nd grade. I was on the playground and we were playing Foursquare, and I had just switched from private school to public school because my parents got divorced and my mom couldn't afford private school anymore. And I'm on the playground playing Foursquare, and it was like these 5th graders there, and I'm the new boy at school, and they're like, "Oh, he gay. And I was like so confused. I'm like, what's gay? Like, I literally was asking people, what's gay? And so the bullies, of course, go in on this joke. And they're like, "Oh, it means you're happy. It means you're happy." So I start, my dumb ass, naive, start going, "Oh yeah, I'm gay. I'm gay," because I'm trying to be like, "Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I belong at this new school." So I'm walking around all day saying I'm gay, and everyone kind of knows, that what's going on except for me. And I go home and go to my mom. Now imagine this. I go, "Mom, guess what? I'm gay." Oh, that didn't go well, And so my mom was like, "No, you're not. No, you're not. No, don't you ever say that. That's the disease that God gives bad people who are going to hell. And so, you're going to get HIV." And I'm like, "What's HIV?" And she starts telling me about AIDS. And so,
And how old are you?
in 2nd grade.
2nd grade, wow.
And so my first ever understanding of gay was that it was something that I needed to be embarrassed about, something people were joking about, something that God gave me because I'm a bad person, something because whatever. I didn't really know anything about it, but I just knew that everyone was calling me, whatever it was, people were calling me it. And then when I came to understand more of what it was and realizing that that's who I was, I fought it for a long time, and that was, I think, one of the biggest challenges of my life. And I think what a lot of queer people deal with is growing up, the thing that I practiced most, and I think most queer people, what we practice most is being someone else so that we can be accepted.
Yeah.
And so then for a lot of us, what our greatest life challenge becomes is learning how to be authentic and learning how to be our real selves, because we've practiced our whole childhood learning how to shape shift so that we can feel safe, so we can feel loved, so we can belong. And so anyway, that's kind of the gay story, how that all happened.
That's so interesting, and I just have one follow-up question about that, and then I want to talk about it a little bit more. But they gave it a word. when you were 8
Mm-hmm.
in second grade, but did you have feelings of attraction for people of the same sex at that
Yeah,
point?
so you know what? It's so funny you're bringing back these memories that I usually only talk about in therapy, but we're going there. So I remember the first time, so they had already called me gay,
Mhm.
and I don't think I paid that much attention, but then soon after that, I remember I was in baseball, and I sucked. But my parents had me in baseball. They should have had me in like gymnastics or something. I would have been really good.
You would have. I can just tell.
And I remember the coach and the kids, like in baseball, you know, they like slap your ass.
Yeah.
Like, good job,
Yeah.
good job. And I remember thinking that I liked that differently than the other boys did. And I was like doing things because I wanted to have somebody slap my butt, or I wanted to slap one of the other boys' butt. And that was my first time remembering, oh, this is something that I know is different from the other boys.
Right.
But it wasn't like a sexual thing yet. It just was, I knew I had attraction. But I did very soon after that. I mean, I was like, I think 9 or 10, the first time I had like any kind of a sexual experience with a boy, which is way too young. But it happened, you know, and that's kind of where it all began for me, to really understanding, oh, I do like boys, but at the same time, having like full-on relationships with girls all the way through high school, and not faking it, like having sex and enjoying it, and you know, so having these two lives, one that was like very hidden, but where I felt loved and accepted for who I really was, but only in private.
Yeah.
And then the other one that was kind of like the public life, that was the Justin that got shown to everyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was this absolute kind of culture of tolerance around race
Yeah.
where you grew up,
Yeah.
and intolerance for being gay or queer or lesbian or whatever,
Yeah.
any one of those letters.
Or different.
Or different.
Yeah.
And the acceptability around race also ran in your family,
Yeah.
because you had when your parents got divorced, you had 2 different cultures, right?
Totally.
Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, so gosh, my family dynamic around race is so fascinating. So my mom is Persian, and she is adopted into an Italian family, okay? And my mom was adopted when she was, I think, 2 days old or something like
Wow.
that. And only until just a couple years ago, which is a whole nother story, we found her biological family. But growing up our whole life, so interesting. My mom, when my grandparents adopted my mom, they were told that my mom was Mexican. So we didn't actually know my mom was Persian until just a few years ago when we did an ancestry DNA test.
Oh, interesting.
So my dad's side is black. Mom is Persian, but thinks she's Mexican, adopted into an Italian family.
Right.
So you see this like identity crisis happening here.
Yeah.
But like my screen name on AOL Instant Messenger, for people who remember AIM, was Blaxican Boy 22. Like that's how like identified.
So you identified as black and Mexican.
Sí, yo hablo español también. Like
Ah.
everything. And so it's just like very, you know, integrated in that way. But what was also interesting about that, growing up that way, is in my home, where I lived primarily with my mom, me and my sister, or if she was gone, just me, I was always the only black guy in the room. My grandparents are white. My cousins have blue eyes and blonde hair. Our family parties, like our family Sundays, were huge parties with pasta dinners, Italian pasta dinners, where I'm the only black guy in the room. And so growing up, that was just normal to me, being the only, I didn't think about it. It just was normal. And then I'd go to my dad's, and then everyone was black, right? So there was this different experience. But there's the positive to that, but then the challenge is, in both spaces, I never felt like I fully fit. And I would kind of switch characters. So like when I would go to my dad's side, you know, everyone grew up in Baptist or gospel church. Well, I grew up Catholic with my mom. So I would show up with all my cousins and all these people, and they're singing all these gospel songs that I don't know.
Right.
And I never learned how to play spades. And I never learned, you know, so like
Yeah.
I'm missing a lot of those things. And then you go to this other side with my white cousins, and like that's a whole different world of things that are missing. So there's this funny in-between space that I kind of would sit in, where I never really felt like I belonged in both places. And I think a lot of mixed people have that experience, you know?
Yeah.
Who or what? Like, I love you anyways. And I don't know. I think we all have these worst case scenarios of what's going to happen, and it just kind of shows these interesting barriers that happen with masculinity, because I had no expectation my dad was going to respond that way.
Yeah.
And he was the easiest. Everyone else was much more dramatic than him.
Right.
So,
right. Well,
yeah.
it sounds like your mother had a really dramatic response.
Oh, she was such a drama queen.
How is
Yeah.
she now with it?
Oh my God, y'all! My mom, is more of a gay rights activist than I am.
Shut up.
No joke. She was out protesting for Prop 8 while I was in my bed.
Oh.
Wait,
what's Prop 8?
Prop 8 was the proposition about gay marriage in
Oh, right,
California.
right. Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
from years ago.
Yeah.
But my mom, she during Pride will wear a Pride shirt, do rainbow. She is transformed dramatically, and we're talking about a woman who, when we were walking down the street in San Francisco when I was a kid, she grabbed our hands and said, "Hurry up, cross the street. Those gay people are coming. We don't want to get HIV." That's how far she's come. I'm so proud of her growth in this, and she's been so open to learning from being super Catholic and not being open to different things to now my mom has crystals and meditates and uses essential oils. So it's been an amazing thing to watch her journey and her growth over this process as well. It's been really inspiring.
When belief systems are passed down from generation to generation like that, to see someone wake up to that maybe the truth is different than this belief system that they've been given from their parents, even if they're not biological, it's still the generation to generation. And to see that the truth is in conflict with that belief system is huge.
Major.
Yeah.
It's a lot of undoing for
Yes.
people. And I think the reason why a lot of people are so resistant to change, or any of us are resistant to change, is because when we learn something new that challenges what we thought was true, then that means now our whole world has to shift a little bit.
Right.
And we don't want to shift our world, right? Because we're comfortable in our little boxes.
Yeah.
But if we're really going to wake up the world, if we're really going to wake up one by one individually, we have to be open to these new truths and being able to hold them all. No alternative facts, but the real truth.
The real. Yes, we
Yeah.
won't even say alternative facts.
Mm-mm.
Did you have role models growing up?
Oprah and my
Oprah?
grandma.
Oh, your grandma.
Yeah.
I want to talk about her.
Yeah.
Tell me, you identify as queer, is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just went through the letters so I could make sure that everybody understands what they are. So L in the LGBTQIAPK.
Okay, you're
Those-
adding more letters than I normally add.
So this is what I got.
Take us through 'em.
L is for lesbian, G is for gay, B is for bisexual, T is for transgender, Q is for queer, which used to be a slur,
Yeah.
but has now been reclaimed for people who have same-sex relationships.
Yep.
It can also be questioning.
Mm-hmm.
Q. I is intersex. That's when your assigned gender doesn't necessarily fit with the typical understanding of that gender. A is asexual, someone who's not attracted to anyone of any gender, regardless of gender, rather. P is pansexual, someone who is attracted to people regardless of gender. And K is kink, someone who finds comfort in expressing their sexuality in alternative, counterculture ways.
God, I learn so much every time this happens, and it's so interesting to watch the language become more and more inclusive. And I think the direction that we're headed, hopefully, especially as I look at the younger kids, is that we're not going to need all this shit.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many letters. It's all right, y'all.
That's what Scott said. Scott said there are too many letters.
I understand why we have to differentiate so that people can come together and find community in these places where they feel very alone and left out. So I think for that reason, the letters are important. But I think where the world is hopefully headed is into a space similar to what happened or is happening, but with women's rights. It's at first it's separate women, women only, women, and then it's no, women want actually equality and to have the same thing as everybody, and now it's how do we integrate as women into everything that's happening? And so I feel with the LGBTQIAPK,
Yes.
I usually say LGBTQIA plus is normally what I say, just a plus sign. I think that's what's happening, and a lot of the young kids, they're I don't care, I just whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever I am is whatever I am. Why do we need to do this?
I think you're right. I think there was a time where we have to honor what the identifier.
Yeah.
Say that we see you.
Yeah.
We see that you identify as this, and we honor that, and then we can move forward and say whatever you are, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
that the label itself doesn't matter. It's just you.
Yeah, it's I think in terms of growth, like oftentimes, even just personally, if we pay attention to our own evolution and the collective evolution, we have to oftentimes differentiate first so that we can find our agency in who we are as individuals, so that we can then reintegrate into the collective. And integration is where we're the strongest, right? If we're all separated constantly in these different letters, then we're not coming together as a community. But separating into the letters at first helps us come together and find that community.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It was part of the process that needs to happen.
Yeah. And I identify, it's interesting, as queer now. And I remember it was the first article ever that was ever published. It was by Afropunk about my music. And the title of it, and this was in 2016, so queer wasn't quite as claimed yet. It was starting to be. And the title of it was Queer Black Musician Releases Haunting New Music Video.
Oh.
And they posted it, and my mom, and even me, I was like, what? Like,
right.
And my mom was like, why are they calling you queer? Like, are they, this is blah, blah, blah. Like, and I was like, I don't know. So they ended up changing it. But it's interesting to watch how that word has been reclaimed. And I think it's important, though, because I consider myself, like, gay-ish mostly. Like, most of the 90% of the time. But there are some moments when I go the other direction. So you never know. You know what I mean? So queer is a good word.
I like it.
Yeah.
I was going to read a quote from your book.
Please, thank you.
When you grow up with violence and abuse, you dream of safety. When you grow up living paycheck to paycheck, you dream of security. When you're from a broken home, you dream of stability. When you're teased for being different, your dream is to belong. When you grow up marginalized, you dream of the same basic rights that seem to be afforded to everyone else by default. So I love all that. I love all that. It really, it just like settled right in my heart area. And I wanted to talk about when you grow up living paycheck to paycheck, as my family did.
Yeah, mine too.
You dream of security. How did that affect your ambitions? Because I know that it did. I know before you got to this person that I'm sitting across from, you had ambitions to do more.
Yeah, so it's interesting, like, so many of us base our desires and our dreams for our lives based on a desire to get out of our current circumstances, or just to have the basic needs met. You know, just for, like, we're like, oh, I can't wait, so I have this job, so I have security, so I have stability. And when that is our aim, we aren't able to actually dream and start living into the real vision that is given to us really by God or the universe or whatever for the big picture of our lives. And I'm not talking about fame or ego. Sure, that's fine if that's in your vision. But I'm talking about going beyond those basic standard needs. And when we grow up in environments when those needs are not met, then it limits our capacity to dream bigger when we start getting old enough to recognize that we have these limitations around us.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you were in that place, you wanted to make money.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
So I started out, my big thing when I was a kid was like, okay, let's go to college. Like, well, it was basically, how do I get out? How do I make money?
Right.
How do I get out? How do I make money? And the way out of the hood. Out of poverty. Yeah, out of the hood, you know, out of poverty, out of whatever. Like, the only way out that anybody knows of is getting a scholarship to play sports or going to college.
Right.
That's like what you're told. Or what?
Well, I think there's also dealing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That you can do, or hustling, running numbers. Like, there are other ways, but they're not, they kind of keep you in.
Yes.
But you can still rise to the top of that. Yeah.
Anyway. And so, yes, and you know, it's interesting because there's all these different routes, and you know, even me and my siblings, we've all taken different routes. But for me, I think growing up where I was being teased and being bullied and all these kind of things, and also dealing with the paycheck to paycheck and whatever, my coping mechanism was, I'm just going to be really smart, because that's what nobody could fuck with me on. Like, if I'm just smart, and I'm going to get out, and I'm going to make money, and I'm going to show everybody. You know, and that's what was driving me for so long. And so I went to college, and instead of doing music, even though that's what I really wanted to do, I did marketing. Because I'm not going to get a full ride scholarship to UCLA and then end up broke afterwards doing
Right,
music,
right.
you know, because of course I didn't know anybody in my family or around me who was working in the arts or working in their passions and making money. A lot of people had, you know, a lot of our ancestors and the people who come before us, they had to sacrifice those things to try to create stability for us.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I started out just going to college, doing music, not doing music, doing marketing, ended up starting a marketing company when I was 20 years old in college that was really successful. By the time I got out of college, I had an office in Santa Monica with 5 employees, was making 6 figures, driving a BMW. Like, really, you would have thought I was living the dream.
The dream, yeah.
And it was, for a certain extent, it was the dream. But what I didn't recognize until I had this seminal moment with my grandmother was that entire life, that entire dream that I was building was fully based off of my desire to get out.
Yes.
It wasn't based on my desire to fly. That was really built into my genes.
Your grandmother.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought her up, and you called her your baka.
My baka.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me that story that you're talking about?
Yeah. So this is, I think, of anything that I tell on this podcast, I would say this is probably the most important thing that I could share. And so several years ago, my baka got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and the doctors told her she had a couple months to live. It was shocking to our family. She was what I consider young, 67, one of the healthiest people seemingly in our family. And so when I got the news, I flew home to the Bay Area to be with her in Pittsburgh, and I walked in the door, and as soon as I walked in, she pulled me in her room, shut the door, sat me down, and literally asked a question that changed the trajectory of my entire life. She just said, if you were in my shoes and you knew you were going to die in 2 months, what would you do? And you have to remember, at this point, I'm driving the BMW, I'm doing marketing, I think I'm doing on the outside what I was supposed to do to be successful. Right. And she just said, close your eyes, get quiet, and listen. If you were in my shoes and you knew you were going to die in 2 months, what would you do? And literally, I felt this like wave of emotion come just running through me, and I just blurted out, I would quit everything I'm doing and I would record an album. I would stop everything. I would just do music. I would throw it all away and do music. And she just looked at me and she was like, I know. Baby, I know. And I was like, you know, what? You know? And she said, ever since you were a little kid, you've always wanted that. That's always been inside of you. But I let all the kids who tease me about being gay, who tease me about being different, all the bullying, all the trauma, the paycheck, I let all that stuff make me think I wasn't good enough or suited for that dream. And I stopped myself, and we all do this. We all have these dreams that we limit ourselves on because we think we're too fat or too old or too ugly or too gay or we waited too long or we're a woman or we're too poor. We all have these things, you know, and in that moment, when my grandma asked me that question, it woke me up to that dream that I almost let die. But the thing is, our dreams, it's very Elizabeth Gilbert, you know, they don't give up on us. They're always right there waiting for us to claim them and make them manifest into the world. So she made me look her in the eyes and promise her that I would do it. And it was amazing. I had this vision in my head when she said that of me sometime later in my life climbing all the way up this marketing mountain, which I would have got to the top to because I'm an overachiever, you know, all the way to the top of this marketing mountain sometime later in life. Getting to the top, looking across and saying, damn, I spent all this time climbing to the top of the wrong mountain.
Wow.
And I saw it. I knew that was a reality that would be for me if I didn't make a choice. So I promised my grandma I would do the album, and so grateful to say I stepped into that, and I ended up putting out an album that charted in the top 20, which blew me the hell away.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to regret that I didn't start music sooner, because when I started, you know, I was like, oh, I'm kind of good. Like, oh, I'm getting better at this. Damn it! Like, what if I would have started when I was 12? You know.
Right.
But it was because of my experience in marketing that my album was able to chart. If it wasn't for that marketing experience, I would have never been able to put out an album that did that as an independent artist. And so what I want to share is that, like, no experience is wasted. We're exactly on the journey we're supposed to be on, but when we have those whispers and those moments, and we all know when they come in our lives, when they're trying to wake us up and point us in the right direction, it's our responsibility to move.
And that gift, that ultimate gift that she gave you, I'm going to remember that story forever.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and it's just so beautiful, and the way you describe your relationship with your grandmother in the book, I was scared that something was going to happen to her. And then when you said that and I saw what she gave you as a result of finding out about her own mortality,
Yeah.
And how it allowed you to live
Yeah.
in a way that you hadn't been able to before.
No.
It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it was such a gift.
Can you talk to me about Stay Woke?
Yes.
So it's a meditation. I'm holding it now. A meditation guide for the rest of us. Who are the rest of us? Do you want to read the?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was just going to
Okay.
ask you that. So it's on page 3.
Yeah.
It was interesting because the early title for the book, before Stay Woke came into play, was Meditation for the Rest of Us.
Okay.
So for the rest of us has always been really important to me, and I'll say why later. But when we were writing, I remember one of the notes my editor gave me was, who is the rest of us?
Right.
Don't be afraid. Be specific. Who?
Mm-hmm.
And I was afraid at first. I'm going to leave people out.
Right.
And I was like, no. I know who I wrote this book for.
Mm-hmm.
So this is on page 3.
Okay.
For my Black brothers and sisters, this is for you. For my LGBTQIA plus brothers and sisters, this is for you. For my women who've had enough, this is for you. For my starving artists and workaholic creatives, this is for you. For my conscious entrepreneurs who want to make an impact, this is for you. For those who've been discriminated against for their otherness, this is for you. For my social justice warriors, this is for you. For my tree-loving planet savers, this is for you. And for all people of color, and everyone who is woke enough to understand why I'm pointing that out in the first place, this is for you. This book is for us, for the people.
Yes.
So that's the rest of us.
That is the rest of us. And I love that. It was one of the first things that you and I talked about on the when we talked on the phone. So just talking as a person of color, as a person who's been marginalized for both my gender and my race, probably people who look like me, who are like me, need meditation and mindfulness more than anybody else.
Yeah.
But we're not the population that has the most access to it or
Yeah.
the most inspiration to do it. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's so interesting. So if I can be real, I can be real.
You
So
can be real.
a lot of these practices, the thing that I like to remind people, not a lot of, all of these practices come from people of color. Like, originally come from people of color. And what's happened in our history is our practices and our spiritual beliefs and our traditions have been stripped away from us by colonizers, demonized, and then productized
Wow.
and sold back to us. But then they're sold back to us in this way that we feel like we don't relate to. And then it's told that it's not for us, right? It's worshiping the devil. That was one of the things my Vodka and my mom tried to have an intervention when I first started meditating because they thought I joined a cult.
Wow.
They literally tried to have an intervention.
Like they sat you down and said,
Yes, they came knocking on my door
Mm.
and saying, we need to have a talk, because I posted something on Facebook about the universe and Mother Earth. And they said, there's only one Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You know, and I'm not knocking any religion at all. What I'm saying is that when you actually go back to wear crystals and honoring the earth and using mindfulness practices and doing all this stuff, these all come from native traditions, African traditions, people of color. That's where it comes from. So what I find is that when we reclaim these practices, when people of color step back into this, it feels like a coming home.
Mm.
That's what everybody says. It feels like a coming home. But the thing is oftentimes it's being taught to us by people who don't have our background, don't have our context, don't have our perspective. So the way they're teaching it to us is in a way that doesn't land.
Right.
It just doesn't, it feels like it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened to me. It felt, when I first started meditating, it felt like it didn't fit, you know? And then when we start to shift it and see how does this stuff actually apply to the very real struggles and things we're dealing with in our lives, which for most of us, let me just be real, is not about relaxing.
No.
No. For most of us, not like, oh, let me meditate so I can relax. No. Sure. Okay, like we want to be more relaxed, but like, how do we use meditation to become more alive?
Mm-hmm.
How do we use it to become more connected to our passions, to overcome toxic habits, to step into the lives that we're born to live, to stop the internalized oppression that's coming on many of us? That's why I'm interested in teaching meditation, and that's what the book is all about.
I was just like totally transfixed.
Thank
by
you.
On page 2 of your book, you say, I have a confession to make. This is not really a meditation book. And then you say something else, but I'm just going to tell you that Scott and I have a friend named Sunny.
Okay.
Shout out to Sunny, wherever you are.
Sunny!
She says she's never been able to meditate, and I bring her up because I thought of her while reading your book, especially when you said if you can worry,
Yeah.
then you can meditate. Is
Yep.
that what you said?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So just talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so the this is not really a meditation book piece is important because the real truth is, like, I don't give a shit about meditation. I'm using meditation, and the only reason I teach meditation is because it is the tool that has transformed my life most. It is a tool that we get access to use that can help us change our lives. So the book is about you stepping into your purpose. It's about guiding you through a process of stepping into your passion and overcoming self-sabotage. And meditation is the tool that helps us get there. And when people come to me and say, oh, I can't meditate, I just can't get my mind to stop thinking, I just can't. Look, I've been there, right? Oh, every time I sit down, my mind just starts going crazy. I just can't do that. I meditate when I run. I meditate when I cook,
Yeah.
whatever. This is what we all say. This is the thing. I said, if you can worry, you can meditate. They're literally the same thing. Worrying is what happens. You're thinking of something, some doom and gloom thing that's going to happen. And no matter what you're doing throughout your day, you're just letting your mind return to it over and over and over. You could be driving, you could be walking, you could be talking, you could be trying to think positive. You keep coming back to that same worry. That's the same thing as meditation, except we flip the switch from worrying to empowerment. And instead of choosing on something to worry about that we keep coming back to, we choose something that's going to take us towards our growth.
Wow.
And a mantra really being like an affirmation or a word or a phrase or something that we're using that's taking us towards who we want to be. And this is how, people say I can't get my mind to stop thinking. First of all, you can't. It's the biggest myth about meditation that people think they have to get their minds to stop thinking. So you're not going to. That'd be like saying, oh, I'm going to meditate. I need to get my heart to stop beating now.
Right.
Like, it's bullshit, right? The mind's going to think. What people want is not to stop thinking. They want to get their thoughts to work for them instead of against them. So many of us, our thoughts are running us. They're running our lives, and they're working against us. The goal is to get them to work for us.
I love that. And I want to be mindful of our time here. But
Yes.
I mean, you have to listen. You have to listen to this podcast, but you have to read this book because there's just so much in it that I didn't know. And I meditate. I have a meditation practice, but the tips and the tools and the stories that you use to get people in, and there's something that you say. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it in the book.
If you tell me what it is, I can probably tell you where it's at.
So it's the part where we're not monks. Was that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the reason that we think that we have trouble, or we have trouble thinking about meditation, is because it's like we live in this technological world. You know what I'm talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
That part.
Yep. It's right here, actually. Do you want it, or do you want me to have
You
it?
read it.
You want me to read this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, this is a part that you're talking about. Throughout my last decade of teaching yoga and meditation, I've been blessed to work with thousands of people of all types of backgrounds from more than 40 countries around the globe, and everyone says the same thing. I've tried meditation, but I just can't stick with it, or I just can't get my mind to slow down, or I don't believe in meditation. And the thing is, I actually understand why. And that's because meditation, at least the kind of meditation that most of us have heard about, started with a bunch of men
Right.
who were monks
Yes.
sitting in the forest. And to become a monk, you had to release and abandon your entire family, all of your friends, all of your internal desires. You had to give up sex and passion and intimacy and all of your emotions and all of your needs, including hunger and thirst and everything you love. You had to literally renounce all of it, sit under a tree, and devote the rest of your life to God.
Right.
Sounds intense, right?
Yeah.
Right? It was, and it was so intense that the ancient monks had to use special techniques to help them totally abandon their worldly desires. And the most powerful technique that they created was meditation. But the thing is, we are not monks. We are modern people in a high-tech world.
Yes.
We have first world problems and shit to do. We have iPhones and social media and emotions that keep us connected to our passions and our dreams and to one another. We have relationships and kids and jobs and long to-do lists. And if you grew up like me, overcoming systemic oppression, homophobia, sexism, depression, poverty, toxic masculinity, racism, or trauma, you need a different type of meditation. One that doesn't pretend that your struggle doesn't exist.
Yes.
So that's the
I love that.
that's
I love
the
that
juice of the book.
Well, it felt really freeing to me
Mhm.
because if you're bound to this one idea what meditation is, and you're right, you illustrate the world we live in so well, it's just going to keep getting busier and more technological as we advance. So to have a tool that works, and what's really great about your book too, and I haven't gotten through all of it yet because I just got my advanced copy
I
recently.
know, we rush shipped it to you.
Yes,
Yeah.
you did. Thank you so much, and
Yeah.
shout out to Nick for doing that. But it's, you say it's passed, like recipes are passed down from generation to generation, especially in our culture.
Yeah.
That's our history.
It is.
Because we were cut off from the rest of our history.
Yeah, we don't got no 400-year-old jewels
No,
and
we
stuff,
don't.
you know,
No, we don't.
from our ancestors. But we got recipes.
We got recipes,
Yeah.
and I love your description of sitting with your grandmother and the pinch of this, and there was no writing anything down or scribbles.
Yeah,
But anyway, this book is set up like a recipe book, so you can individualize it,
yeah,
and you can take what you want from the beginning and then figure out how to use it
yeah.
in the rest of the book. It's genius.
Thank you.
It really is.
Oh, thank you.
And we're going to get back to your book in a second, but right now we're going to go to the Dear Laura that I talked to you
dear
about.
Laura.
Yes. And this is from our Facebook group, and I don't know if he wanted his name used, so we'll just leave him anonymous for right now. Can you address the difference between mindfulness as opposed to mindlessness? I mean to say, do we need to slow down and be aware? Sure. And do I need to grasp and savor every flavor? Maybe. But a constant practice that is part of a regime akin to some pious protocol so I can live a better life? Nah. I just live and expect great things. What do you think?
Okay, I love this.
Yeah, so we gotta kind of dissect this and take it apart. What do you get from it?
Okay, so what I am understanding that he's saying, I'm calling him Hun 2.
I'm
I'm just kidding. There is no Hun 2. There's only
No,
one
not
Hun
yet.
out here.
Well, you're about to be a
Not
Hun
yet.
with your hat on.
You
I
are.
am about to be a Hun.
Yeah.
I'll be
You and
Hun.
Jay.
Me and Jay will be
Right.
Hun 3 and 4. So what I'm getting at the essence, I had my eyes closed just kind of listening to the core of what he's saying is, why do I have to do this daily pious practice that's part of some tradition or regime for me to enjoy my life?
Right.
That's, I think,
that's what I think he's asking.
that's the essence
Yeah.
of the question,
Yeah.
right? And ultimately, here's the deal. So many of us have so much practice at pushing things down to try to quote unquote live our life. But when we're doing that and we're pushing things down, we don't even recognize what's running our lives from the background. And there's a lot that's running our lives from the background in the shadows. And what I say is that if we don't set dedicated time to be alone with ourselves, so many of us have so much trouble being just alone in silence with ourselves. It was hard for me when I first started because we don't have practice at doing that. If we can't do that, how can we ever expect to really know ourselves? How can we ever expect to really know what the path is for our lives, to listen to the whispers? Look, this is one of the things that I like to say, and whether you believe in God, the universe, whatever, just for the sake of this, I'm going to say God. Prayer is when you talk to God. Meditation is when you listen to God talking back to you. Mm-hmm. We spend so much time asking, praying, what should I do? Show me the way. I don't know what to do next. I don't know. I got to ask him, got to call him, got to call her. If we don't sit down and get silent with ourselves, then we don't have a relationship with the deepest part of ourselves that actually knows which way to go. And this is why it's not about becoming a part of a regime or becoming part of a tradition. It's literally about you setting time aside in your life for you to actually build a relationship with the most important person in your life, which is you.
Wow.
And that's it. That's what it's all about.
I love that answer.
Oh, thank you.
That's so perfect. It's like you had that prepared.
No,
You
I
didn't.
I did not.
No. You know, I just have to say that, you know, when you arrived, well, first of all, you know, we had to push the session because part of the ceiling fell down in
Yeah,
our studio.
so wild.
And it had to be like